Hi friends, it's Lee here from COR. And today I want to share with you what I consider to be the most important step to navigate challenging situations and conversations. Those hard conversations that we might otherwise avoid. It's a counterintuitive step, but I think it's the one that will really create the most fruitful outcomes. And I'm talking about those situations that may be personal, they may be family related, romantic, business, any of those situations where we know we're headed into a place of difference, a place of challenge, and we might otherwise avoid these conversations. It may be a situation where we really are required to step in. What I want to invite you to think about is that it costs us to avoid those kinds of conversations. Something in us kind of dies if we avoid those kinds of conflicts long enough. And right now we live in a world that's pretty complex. There is a lot of conflict flying around on multiple levels. In different ways in society. And it's a complex time. And what I want to help you create is a way to navigate that, to actually choose to engage in that in an empowered way that brings ease and what we'll call empowered presence. And not only is it a complex time in the world, but I think we're never taught these skills. We're never taught the skills of discussion. How to have a conversation with another person, especially someone we disagree with. And there's a lot of disagreement right now. And when we choose not to step into those situations, there's significant fallout. One of the things that may happen to us is that we simply stop engaging in relationships, because every relationship involves conflict at some point on some level, even relationships that we don't consider to be conflicting relationships. So if we don't nurture and foster that ability to navigate conflict, we just start avoiding relationships altogether. Also, what that does then is we lose the gift of the other person. Because when we engage with others, even those people that we find challenging or situations we disagree with, we may actually learn something. We may discover something. And, we hold that each person is a gift. You're a gift, and the person you have a conflict with is a gift. And we can really create a fruitful relationship. We grow, right? And so when we avoid conflict, we actually avoid the gift of the other person. Another thing it does is when we avoid long enough, it reinforces what I'll call suspicion of our essential goodness. One of our tenets here is that we are all essentially good. We make mistakes and we do things badly, but we are fundamentally, essentially good. And so is the person that you may have a challenging situation with. When we avoid those long enough, it just reinforces doubt in my own goodness and the other person's goodness and the kind of cynicism about the world in general. Because it's easier to kind of pout and go, I'm not going to play. And it's kind of, sour grapes. He's not worth it anyway. She's not worth it. And, it's none of it's actually worth it. We can see how that spirals into a kind of cynicism. And so that's at stake if we choose not to engage in conflict. And I think the other big thing that's at stake when we shy away from these situations is we sell ourselves out. Because you have a specific gift to give too. You have a point of view. You have thoughts and perspectives and something to contribute. And when we don't engage in that for whatever reason, there's something in us that we kind of sell our own soul, right? And it erodes a trust in us, and we sell out our own goodness, and we detach, and we don't get actually to be creative or generous. And we want to be creative and generous, right? I mean, that's where a huge part of our fulfillment comes from. And that comes with engaging in challenging relationships. So, what's the solution? Well, here's the steps I'm going to propose to you. The first one is to realize that in any conflict, in any situation, I do have a desire to be heard. That's that feeling that kind of fires me. Like, do you get me? And we all have a deep desire to be gotten, right? We want to be gotten. We want to be heard. And the way that functions a lot right now is that we hold our thoughts and perspectives and the other person's and we just want to blow them out of the water, right? That's kind of what's happening now on a societal level with a lot of ideologies flying around. Maybe it happens to you personally also in your personal relationships. We just wait until we blow the other person out of the water. Under that is a real honest desire to be heard. So that's the first thing you want to recognize is I have a desire and a need actually to be heard, to be listened to, and I have a perspective that wants to be shared. Here, my friends, is the counterintuitive step. Don't share that perspective until you first listen to the other person. So if my intention is you got to hear me, you got to understand me, what I'm going to propose to you in any situation where there's challenging conflict or different perspectives is first listen. Seek first to understand the other person before you're understood. So you want to take what we might call the high road. And the high road leads to fruitful conversations. By the high road, I mean this position of I will understand first. I really want to get you. That same desire that I have to be heard and understood, the other person has as well. And by the high road, I'm choosing first to understand you and your perspective and pausing sharing mine until I understand yours. And that moves us out of the attack-attack dynamic. Right? That survivor self-functioning, which is that attack. I attack, you attack. You know how that goes. We all know how that goes. It doesn't go well. Doesn't lead us to anywhere fruitful. So this first step, and it is, by the way, only the first step in a conversation. It's not only about me listening to the other person, but that first step that I propose to you is actually listening. And at COR, it's what we call, in the work we do, active listening. And active listening is choosing to actually hear the other person, to hear what they have to say. And it's a skill. It's easy to say, but it's a skill. There's a way to learn how to do it, and there's a way to do it. And, excuse me. And so that's what we want to foster. And one of the things that does for us is it takes us out of the theoretical. Man, we are so engaged these days in ideology and thought and groupthink and gossip and we're battling thoughts. And engaging in a conversation with another human being is always personal. And what active listening allows you to do is get under the thought and the ideology and whatever you're projecting or perceiving to actually, what is this person actually saying? What are they actually trying to communicate? What's their need? You really want to get them, right? Not the ideas, but the person themselves. And it begins with this first step of active listening. And not selling ourselves out. It's not the only step. Active listening is followed by me also expressing my perspective and being heard. But I can guarantee you, I can assure you from my experience, that this first step of active listening is a powerful one. And because it's counterintuitive, it's not where we generally go first. And there is a skill to it. There's a technique to it. And if it speaks to you, and if you find yourselves in these areas of conflict, challenge, I invite you to join us for our next COR Leadership Classroom, where we offer some of the skills from the COR Leadership Training in a free 90-minute format. And the next one coming up is going to be 90 minutes spent on this skill of active listening. It's the first step in clear communication. It's not the only step, but it's the first essential step. So if this speaks to you, please come explore with us the depth of active listening, right? And try it out. See what it's like, see what the tools are, and see how fruitful it can be in navigating these challenging conversations. Hope to see you on our next COR Leadership Classroom. Thanks.